Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel newsobject. My name is Avnish Singh and today we are going to talk about a very famous interview question, roll-up summary trigger. I saw a lot many people are facing issues while writing the trigger of roll-up summary. So today we have a scenario that there are two objects, one is invoice, the other one is invoice line item. The relationship between them is lookup. Now we have two fields available. One is over the invoice object called average amount, and there's another field in the invoice line item as amount. Now what we have to do, we have to calculate the average amount of all the invoice line item and update in the invoice object. So for this, as I mentioned, we have the relationship called lookup. We need to write a trigger. So here I have already written a trigger called invoice line item trigger, where the helper class name is invoice line item helper, have a method set average amount. In this class we are going to write this trigger for the different events, let's say after insert, after update, after delete, after undelete. The reason why we want to write this, for example, somebody has updated the invoice line item with the wrong amount and he wanted to correct it. During the correction, it could be possible the trigger need to be run again and update the value of the invoice line item. And there could be another scenario where you have deleted your invoice line item and also wanted to update your average amount as well. And we also consider the undelete scenario here for the record when it is getting undeleted. Alright, now we have these parameters. One is trigger.new, which is coming as new line item list. The other one is old line item list, and the other one is old map here. Now let's get started. So first we should start writing it through the iterating. So we are writing a for loop over the invoice line item, and let's say invoice each, and then trigger.new. This trigger.new will get the value of new list of invoice line item whenever the record will be inserted, updated, or undeleted. But let's consider a scenario about the update case and delete case as well. In that case, we need the old value. So for delete case, what I'm going to do here, creating a new list of invoice line item, and trigger dot is delete, then trigger dot, or let's say old list item, and then trigger dot new, or we can say new list item. And then let's replace this with the invoice line item list. Now what could be the possibility? Possibility is there could be some invoice line item which does not have the invoices, so we need to filter them out. So we don't want to run this trigger for those invoices. Let's take the field relationship name, and now we will create a map of ID of invoice and object of invoice. We'll check whether the ID of invoice is already containing inside the map. If not, then we'll go inside the map and create invoice ID as a key and object as invoice. Also, since we have to update the value of average amount, let's make this value as a default 0. Then what are the possibilities for calculating the average amount? So we already know we have an aggregate query available in Salesforce, and I will show you what result you will get if you will aggregate the query. So for example, we are calculating the average of amount field, this one, from your object invoice line item, and then let's group by via your invoice field, and here let's put your invoice name as well. Let's run this query. Now you all can see the data is querying here. You are getting your invoice ID and you are getting your average amount, right? For this invoice ID, you have this average amount, and this invoice ID, you have this average amount. What all you have to do is, whatever is coming for your invoice as a key, you just only have to filter them out. So let's write a where clause where invoice _c in your map dot key set. Alright, now the query is ready. What all you have to do now? You just have to iterate this aggregate result and update your average amount. This is going to be easy one. So here, let's say aggregate result AR each, and then your list name AR list. Okay, so either we can use for getting this average amount as the expr0 expression, or we can use the alias. So for the moment I'm going to use the alias, and here invoice ID. Okay, now first let's get the value of your average amount. Okay, it's going to be your AR each dot get amount, right? This statement will return the value in form of object, so you have to typecast it as well. So let's do that. Decimal. Also, we are going to get the value of your invoice ID. ID, invoice ID equals to, and then make this as a ID, and this is going to be your invoice ID. Alright, now let's see. This ID should be exist already in this map, because we have already put these IDs as a map as a key. So let's write another statement of if condition here, saying if this map dot contains key is what? This ID. Okay, alright, then what we can do, we'll typecast this decimal value, and then we'll fetch the invoice map, an instance of your invoice object. Here we go. What next? Now we have the invoice instance, we can update the value. Alright. Which value? This average amount. Okay, here we go. With what? With this average amount which we have get from the aggregate query result. Here we go. Now, time to put this value or this instance of invoice object back to your map. Alright. Dot put your invoice ID as a key and your updated value of your invoice object. What else? Nothing. You just need to update this invoice map. So let's go here and check the invoice map. Right? Is empty. No, it's not empty. Then update your invoice map dot values. That's it. Now it's time to deploy this code and test it. Let's see if we are getting any runtime error here. I'm not hoping. Alright, this gets deployed successfully. Let's go back and see how it is behaving now. So as you can see, I already have created one invoice, have the value average amount null, have invoice line item called 100, 400, 897. Let's make it little easy. Let's update this as a 200. Alright, so the value is going to be 400, 200, 600 and your 100 which is going to be 700 and divided by 3 the value should be 233.3. This worked fine. So what we have tested? We have tested the update case. Now test it. Another case, let's say I am adding another value of insert, the amount 100, updated. Now value goes to the 800 and total number of records are 4. What should be the value? 200. This means it is working fine. Let's test another scenario of delete. We are deleting it. Alright. The value goes back again 233. Let's delete one more. Now the value should be 150. This is working absolutely fine. Now there could be another scenario of an update. For example, let's see, this one has no value or this has no value, right? And we are creating another invoice line item, for example 100. Now the value goes back here 100. Now let's update this invoice line item again and try to change the invoice and back to the invoice 1. What should be the case? This should be removed from here, right? It's removed, but still your average amount is 100. Let's check the other one. Here, this works fine, right? But the other one is not updated, this invoice 2. How we can fix this one? So let's go back to our code. Here, let's think about it. In which case it was not working? It was not working in case of your update scenario. So let's say trigger dot is update, and when you have changed your invoices, let's put this specific case. So when you have changed your invoices, So from your old map, you are getting your in each dot id and then your invoice and then your in each dot invoice is actually not equal. So what we are doing here, we are doing in case of update, if the old value of your invoice line item invoice is not matching with the new value of your invoice, then we are going to consider this case as well. And in this case, which condition was not working? Actually, your old value is not getting updated. Which one is invoice 2? So we are simply doing one thing. Here we will put our old invoice value as a key. Here we go. And then your old invoice key as a invoice ID. That's it. Now what will happen? In this case, the first statement will calculate your new value and the second statement will calculate the old value as well. Let's deploy this code. Let's go back. Let's create another invoice here. Amount 100 and then another amount 200. The value goes to the 150. Now what we will do, we'll move one invoice to another invoice. Invoice 2 to invoice 1. So this invoice line item is going to be added in invoice 1. See, here it got added and this value is updated. And let's go back to check the another invoice line item. Here we go. This have only 200 and this also gets updated. So making these changes will make your trigger perfect. You can also do some finishing of the code. Let's say, for example, you are making your query, you are not getting any value, so you can put your if condition to avoid extra calling of your for loop. So let's say this one, and also some more best practices you can follow. You can write this whole piece of code in one statement as well, but yeah, that's all coming from the practices. So in this video, this is all about the Rollup summary trigger. Let me catch you with the another interview question, and thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Thank you so much.